Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Foundry Roundtable. This is Episode 1 of Season 2, or our 43rd episode, whichever you prefer. But we are the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. We're back after our whirlwind tour of Europe, Scandinavia, and the subcontinent, which is actually not true at all. We just went on hiatus for the holidays. But the whole crew is back and ready to roll, including myself, Drogan1701, Greendragoon, Markhawkman, and Hippiejohn.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And we have a special guest tonight, none other than Star Trek Online's Community Manager Branflakes.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you had a good time in Europe. In your mind.
We'll just say we did, in our minds.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much for coming.
My pleasure.
As y'all might remember, Branflakes was here for our very first show, way back in February of 2012. Or no, 2013.
Time has flown.
Yes, indeed it has. So, what we thought about having Branflakes on tonight was just to kind of talk about story, not to do a regular interview. So let's just get right into it. And I thought I'd begin by asking everybody a kind of a simple question. What story genre would you guys like to see more of in the Foundry?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this not too long ago, and I always have been a really good sucker for a redemptive arc. And one where you start off by making the player hate a particular character, and then take on the task of both redeeming and making that character likable again.
Mm-hmm.
I loved What Lies Beneath, and I would love to see more of experimentation with just simply different genres like horror or mystery. My personal favorite is probably a mystery story, like a really well done, good red herrings kind of mystery that's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. I'm not sure how well Star Trek Online is suited to writing stories like that. I mean, I've seen people make attempts at things like that, but, because you're eventually going to get to the same place with a few small exceptions when the story's done. I mean, the only way I can think of around that is stuff like what Pendra did for that one map he did, where either you blow up the planet or you find yourself stranded on a deserted moon or something, depending on your choices you make.
Yeah, for me, what leads me to think about that is I replayed Rogue Enterprise's Hero of the Empire when it was spotlighted, and the spot in there where you get to choose which way you go in the ship that he did really, really well. And I'm sure there are tricks, and I totally agree with you, Mark. We'll end up in the same place, but I'm just thinking I'd love to see it. I'd love to see somebody really write a great mystery. So.
By the way, we got our first live stream snafu, and I forgot to mute myself.
Brandon, what do you think? What sort of genre would you like to see more of in the Foundry?
I really enjoy. I haven't seen too many of this, so maybe you. Oh, are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Yep, we're still here.
Oh, that's weird. It made a weird noise. I will start my answer. I haven't really seen too many of it, but I really enjoy mirror stories. Obviously a little bit harder to do in the Foundry, but I think there are some interesting ways that I think players could play that out. And I also I like time travel missions. So those are my big two.
So if somebody made a mission where you go back in time in the mirror universe, that'd be like instant spotlight.
No, nothing gets instant spotlight.
Yeah.
Well, except for the Purity series, because that was a
special deal, of course.
Yeah, special thing. But yeah, I think those are fun. When I look for spotlight missions, I look for all different types, and I try and switch them up here and there.
I'd always like to see more people take a stab at romance. I mean, it's sort of, obviously you can't do anything really explicit, but I think it could be fun, and it's not something a lot of people attempt. I've seen it maybe once, and it was sort of, I want to say it was, is this Science or Stouts or one of those guys who did this thing where you could choose a backstory for a connection with a character he invented. It was either, you could choose between either you were rivals at the academy or they were, an old romantic flame. And I thought that was really cool.
And there was also Kirkfat's, mission.
Is this Science? It's the person who wrote Twisted Mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the one I'm thinking of.
Twisted Mirror is the one where you go interact with the crew of your ship from an alternate timeline.
I think the name of the mission I'm thinking of was
Rose Tinted Mirror.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of?
Rose Tinted Mirror.
It's
Okay,
the Interwarp Experiment is what I'm thinking of, which I think might have been a Spotlight.
Yes.
A recent Spotlight.
Yeah. Astro Rob, LA.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. That's what it was.
Okay, I was thinking of that one mission of Kirkfat's that had the old flame that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then your role players.
So here's another question I was thinking of. So what episode of Star Trek would you guys like to see a Foundry mission based on that you haven't seen done before? And based on, I'm thinking like, either a direct sequel or take a concept from a Star Trek episode, like, the cause and effect one has been done a few times. The time loop, that sort of thing.
Well, I personally did have a half-finished mission I did with taking an episode of the animated series where Kirk gets sucked into this subspace pocket and talks to the people that live there. I mean, it just seemed like the sort of place that the Federation would want to find a way to go back to, but apparently they never did.
Sounds cool. Do you remember what episode that was?
I remember the name of the place they went to is called the Delta Triangle, but I don't quite remember Time Trap. So it's called the Time Trap.
Mm.
I've always wanted to see people do like historical episodes, like, go back to things that were mentioned in the history of Star Trek, or, that lost era between the end of the TOS movies and the beginning of TNG. I'd love to see things from that era. Because we know so little about it. I think it's been fleshed out in the books, but never in the shows. Sort of like Enterprise C era, that sort of place.
I think it'd be kind of fun to do a mission based on something like Year of Hell.
Yeah.
Where it ends up being self-destroying.
That'd be really interesting to see.
I mean, you could do all sorts of fun stuff. I mean, you could have a mission where you are playing an older version of yourself, going back to change history.
I think it'd be fun to, I think haven't we already had some of that where you go back in time and, people made a mission where you go back in time and fix some of the things you did in Divide et Impera?
Yeah. I think just about everyone has some concept of that.
Honestly, that's theme. I was going to say the winner of that last Foundry Challenge fixed Divide et Impera for me. It was a beautiful mission.
Yep, and that's spotlighted right now too.
Yep. Divide ut Regnus is, brilliant mission. Wonderfully done.
It's actually one of those things that I always kind of wanted to see Kestrel go back and finish up her arc for that.
Well, we might. They're working on rewriting the old story missions.
True. I mean, they haven't had a chance to play
up there.
Yet. I think for me, since you asked the question, I'm like an episode that I would want to see things expanded on. And being a huge fan of the original series. There's a ton of episodes that I would like to know more about kind of what went on there. That even, visiting for me what is the planet that a piece of the action took place on? I'd love to see a story that visits some of the history of what happened after Kirk and Spock and McCoy went to the planet where a piece of the action took place. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. I'm blanking. But something that explored a little bit of the history of that planet, because I know that by the time we're at in game that they are, I want to remember their name, but I believe they're part of the Federation by this point. And I'd like to see some of that history, like how they became. It's one of my favorite episodes. I'd like to see it expanded a little.
Also, didn't Kirk effectively take over as the planet's emperor or something like that?
He left the Federation in control. It was a weird thing. He basically left it as, the Federation was going to be helping these people adjust to galactic society. And as far as the people on the planet were concerned, because of the way that they worked with society, they were seeing the Federation as the new boss. So, our
resourceful folks in the chat room have looked that up, and it's Sigma Iota.
There you
Iotia, however you pronounce that. Got some other things in the chat room. Captain P.F. Dennis says he did something based on Kittimer. Obviously lots of events have happened at Kittimer over the years. Let's see. Pax Federatica says he has a KDF mythological / historical trilogy in mind about the slaying of the Klingon gods, which of course is prompted from that hilarious line by Worf where he says Klingons slew their gods millennia ago. They were more trouble than they were worth. I've always loved that line. Relentime says he would like to see some story about why there are liberated Borg captains running around in Stowe. I think that would be a good one.
That would be
fun. Was there this point where we had this mass exodus of Borg? This point where we went on a mission, liberated hundreds, thousands of Borg. That'd be a great mission.
I'd blame it on Endgame. I mean, because with Endgame, what Janeway did is she effectively turned off the Borg Collective, or a large chunk of it. So, that means you now have, I guess, millions of humans and other similar alien races that are members of the Federation suddenly going, hey, now what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So, Brandon, I know that, that made me think of, I've heard you say that Voyager is your favorite of the, of the series. Are there any episodes that you can think of that you'd like to someday see something more about?
Yeah, obviously this would be hard to do because you're watching it, but maybe you were an observer watching a tape basically, or like you're in a holographic environment watching what happened, but Worship Voyager was really interesting. That episode with that, where basically you learn about how another culture portrayed what Voyager actually was when it wasn't that. So that might be interesting, like you're walking through a hologram program or something like that. Obviously it'd be a little bit harder doing the Foundry, but that'd be fun. I like the Year of Hell idea.
That's my absolute favorite episode. So.
Me too, for
there's
Voyager.
A lot of themes from all over Star Trek, especially on Voyager. Voyager was all about exploration. You're meeting species for the first time, and so I think a lot of those themes make great Foundry missions. And actually, you've seen me doing the literary challenges. Well, I have to come up with the backgrounds for those. So a lot of the time, I'll go to that old Star Trek encyclopedia, and I'll just browse through it once in a while, and I'll see something like, oh, that'd be fun to do a literary challenge about, and some of those can be adapted for Foundry missions too.
I'm just thinking about it, your Worship Voyager idea, and you could totally do a mission where it's your player that is being misconstrued, so you see this like warlike version depicted of yourself.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a good idea.
The way another species viewed you.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes of Voyager.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Now, I recently did a mission that was based partially off Star Trek V, so continuing that theme of doing missions off of what is, unanimously abhorred in Trek canon. Let's do a mission based on Threshold.
What happened to the politics?
What happened to those lizards that Janeway became and Paris became? They're now an intelligent species bent on the destruction of the Federation. They're allied with the Ebos.
Well, that does actually bring up an interesting point, is because they actually did leave the 3 baby whatevers on the planet.
On the planet.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Some people. So let's see, came up with another question. Kind of in that vein, are there any cryptic missions that you guys would like to see Foundry follow-ups for? I mean, obviously Divide et Impera already has some. We even did a challenge on this one. So what other cryptic missions would you guys like to see Foundry follow-ups?
Well, assuming Cryptic doesn't beat me to it in some form, I'd kind of like to do a follow-up mission to the new Federation tutorial, and the fact that we basically left a Federation planet in the hands of the Borg.
Yeah. That's kind of true. That is true.
Yeah. Megacolony is just sitting there assimilated. Currently.
So I'm really interested too in another question that I have is that occurs to me is what sort of aside from just the sort of story that you like, how Brandon, I know that I've heard you are a big fan of PvP and you're a big various aspects of gameplay. What are your favorite ways to incorporate or what places in the game that story and gameplay combine for you, and how what is the reason behind your liking for where the story and the gameplay mesh at various places?
Well, I think one of the most recent is with the Dyson Sphere. Obviously we started it off with a feature episode, and then you get to go explore this whole area. I think that was really awesome and great way to introduce what's going on there. And then our feature episode coming up with the anniversary is going to expand on that even more. So I really love what we're doing with that, and I hope we can do more of that. But outside of official story, I also like what the story we do with my fleet. We'll get together for role play sessions and have a continuous story going on. So I like that aspect of it where, we have the official story that's going on, and then we have the things going on in our fleets and such. And I think there's a lot of avenues of, that we've done, like, for PvP, we've gone in there and like, okay, this is war game, this is a training session, you're gonna be pit against your fleet mates, in a holodeck training combat scenario, but it's a way to actually PvP, but have some story element to it. So I think there's a lot of fun things you can do with that. And, those are two of my favorites.
I know there's a lot of fleets out there that do Foundry missions for themselves.
Yes.
This sort of the story.
We have actually one of them spotlighted. It's not necessarily the story of their fleet, but it was just really good and well done, and it did introduce some people in the fleet, which was 12th Honor Guard, I think is the KDF mission that was spotlighted. Yeah, so that's based off the 12th Fleet's KDF division, and you can't really tell, and that's why I picked it as a spotlight. Like I said, I like to find different genres and themes and spotlight those, and that was just one of those that I thought fit really well. And most people didn't even notice it was about a fleet.
That's really cool.
There was a request in the forum today posted. Somebody was looking for Foundry authors for their fleet to essentially do this, to sort of, tell the story of their characters.
Nice.
So, I hope we get some interest on that.
Right on.
I can't because I'm overloaded with my own projects, but too many unfinished projects. Well, let's see. We're just about out of time for Branflakes because he has to go at the top of the hour here, but I thought I'd give you a chance to plug your own live stream for a minute.
Yeah, so every other week I've been doing a live Star Trek Online live stream on our Twitch TV channel, perfectworld_community. Keep watching those this Friday, tomorrow, for those of you listening live. Sorry, no, not tomorrow. Friday, the 17th. I'm doing a Foundry live stream. We'll be playing through the latest Spotlight on the Foundry. It's a Fed mission. I recently requested tons of Spotlight suggestions to come in, and I got a ton for this mission. Played through it and thought, oh yeah, we've got to Spotlight this. So I'll be going through that and showing players it, and it should be fun. It's about an hour long, so if it goes over, we'll definitely play through the whole thing.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yep, I plan to be there.
Absolutely. I've really been enjoying your live streams.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I've been having a lot of fun doing them. I look forward to doing more.
Cool. Let's see, any thoughts you want to leave us with?
Keep up the great work. We've got some Foundry news we'll be sharing soon with one of your colleague podcasts and your peer podcasts. So look out for some awesome Foundry stuff to be shared and talked about. And yeah, that's all for now. Thank you for having me on, and I look forward to season 2.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Hey,
It's great to have
thanks
you.
for
Great to have you on.
joining us, Brandon.
My pleasure. Cheers. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Take care.
All right. Well, definitely a lot of appreciation for Brandon for coming on for our first podcast of the year. But we have lots more to talk about. So we will move along to our usual stuff. We do have some news. The big news, of course, announced yesterday, that would be Tuesday, is that DStahl is no longer executive producer of STO. He has moved on to other projects at Cryptic. Another project which has been described as super secret.
Yeah.
So we have our new executive producer in the form of Stephen D'Angelo. He's been with the game since launch and has served in several capacities therein. Chief Technical Officer, I believe, is what he was, and then of course he took over several years ago, briefly, when Stahl left for another company.
And just so everyone knows, the Chief Technical Officer is basically, he is in charge of all of the tech for all of Cryptic. So he's kind of the head honcho when it relates to tech and how, like, the matters of the engine and overseeing all of that sort of high level development. Which, I mean, we haven't heard yet that he's
vacating that position.
You know, my reaction to the news is fairly neutral. I never knew what Stephen D'Angelo was like as an executive producer, and I have a slight bit of sadness that, all I can say is, thanks DStahl for really coming through for the KDF faction. Hey, thanks, and, Godspeed, basically. I hope his next project works out really great.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the future, whatever it brings, kind of deal. So
at least this time he isn't running off to a different company.
Right.
Well, for me, there's that, and there's also wondering what exactly D'Angelo is going to be doing, if he's going to be doing any real changes at all.
No, I don't think he will. I mean,
what has he been doing while Dan was in charge?
Yeah, basically overseeing all of Cryptic from a technical standpoint. He was executive producer for a couple of months, and it was a case of he was there just long enough to carry on what Dan had been doing. And then Dan came back just in time to kind of pick up before we really saw any major or any decisions from him really kind of filter through. So it's a case of even though he's been the EP before, I don't know that I have a strong idea of what kind of EP he is. I can tell you he's a much more quiet person than Dan. But given that Dan has been doing less interviews and whatnot in recent years, I don't know that we'll see a huge change on our end.
Let's take a quick pause at the moment. the chat room is saying that Mark is not coming through very well. Is that something that is on his end or Greendragoon's end, or can we get this?
You guys are all coming in through the same audio.
Because we hear him very well.
Wait, this sounds fine, right?
To us
Yeah,
in
it sounds fine
Skype,
to
it's
us.
sounding fine.
But then again, sometimes when they were saying this, you weren't actually speaking. So
Yeah, I mean, you look fine on my end. I'm seeing your audio levels come through, and you seem to be about equal to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. This is only our third time trying this, and the first time for sort of a regular episode. So we'll have to ask everybody to bear with us. We'll try and fix anything we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, big thanks for bearing with us. We're learning, and
And you're dancing.
I am dancing. I've been dancing.
You've been dancing.
I got bored sitting down.
It also is making me AFK. And Relentime says it's actually not Mark, it might be you, Greendragoon.
Well then that's much more likely. Hang up. I can't make myself louder, but I can make everyone else quieter. So.
Well, evening it out would be a good.
Okay, so we'll just continue forward and see if
Yeah.
where things are any better.
Well, let's see. In other news, there really hasn't been much other news, other than what Brandon says. Expect an interview with some Foundry content soon from, not from us, but from a colleague podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My money is on prime time.
Probably. They gotta come back big.
But we've been told for a while that, there were some things coming, in and around season 9, for the Foundry. Gecko mentioned a dozen or so new features. Didn't want to say what that was just then. That was last year. So we're sort of, just kind of patiently waiting to see, what that'll be. So let's move on, to what we've been working on. Obviously it's been a few months, or not a few months, but 4 or 5 weeks since we did a podcast. So, I think, if you guys don't mind, I will go first because, I can explain, what people are seeing on their screen as they're watching the live cast. If you want to pan the camera around a little bit, while I talk here, what you're seeing is the mission that I've been working on, which is, a holodeck recreation of Starbase 1. This is the Federation's very first, not the Federation, but Starfleet's very first outpost outside of the Sol system. It was built on a planetoid, which actually turned out to be rich in minerals, which was actually a bad thing because it sort of precipitated the Romulan War. There was sort of a Pearl Harbor style sneak attack on Starbase 1 and the whole thing was destroyed. So the mission is going to be, you are taking the role of a new officer who's just assigned to Starbase 1. This is, like 2165, something like there, or 2155. And you are going to experience this sneak attack. And I'm going to tell the story of how the Romulan War got started.
Made good use of that, Federation first 150 years, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Very, very heavily inspired from that. Obviously there's some EULA issues, so I'm trying very, very hard to get around those. The attack on the starbase itself is mentioned in like one sentence. So I'm greatly expanding on that. The book goes on to focus on a space battle that happens concurrently. You will not be seeing that. So hopefully we get around it there. But as I always say, I'm a big fan of history. So, I love Star Trek history as well, even, fictional history. So I'm going back. This is going to be, you're going to see Romulans in it. And obviously, in canon, you don't, the Federation did not know who, what the Romulans looked like until TOS. So the way I get around that is your character and every other character you meet on the starbase dies. So they never get the word back to the Federation of what the Romulans actually look like. And the way you are experiencing this now is because an archaeologist was digging around in the ruins of this starbase and found this personal log, which at the end of the mission you're going to bury, and in the hopes that somebody finds it. And then somebody in our 2409 found it and turned it into a holo program. But, it's going to start out in this starbase, and you're going to go around, you're going to get an assignment from the admiral who runs it, and you're going to meet all kinds of different characters and run around doing various tasks. I'm aiming for, immersion. This place is it's huge. It's going to have all kinds of different things to do, all kinds of different people to talk to. Hopefully it'll feel like a social zone. And then you're going to go up to an NX class ship, a Warp 5 ship, and do some tasks there. And then you're going to come down and experience the attack and go from there.
Kind of curious to see how you handle doing an NX class ship.
Well, it's going to be the interior, and that's going to be very tough. I confess I have not even started on it yet. So,
like I said, I look forward to seeing it. Because I know that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. And
it's going to be an interesting combination of assets to try and make it work.
Very interested to see what you manage.
I'm going to have to try and think outside the box, I think.
Well, one thing I'm curious about is the sky.
It
has a
this
hexagonal
base map
grid
is very
pattern.
cool. This is, and for life, I can't think of the name of it, but this is the map where it's in the Romulan story arc. You go down to this planet, it's like a mining station, and you fight a bunch of remans.
Is this the one that's floating in the debris of the Romulan homeworld?
This is the Hobus.
Possibly, yes.
Hobus mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Hobus map.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it has that interesting sky above it.
Which is actually not the sky, it's actually something in front of the sky.
I was just wondering, because I wasn't sure whether the hexagonal grid was a baked in part of the map or whether it was part of the backdrop.
It is baked in.
Sky.
Which is a happy accident because I didn't actually realize that when I chose this map. I just picked it and then opened it up and looked at it. I was like, oh, look at that up there. That's perfect.
And there's actually another hexagonal pattern sky where it is a part of the sky map.
Is it?
It's another Romulan mission. The one where you're saving that science ship. Who you have to beam down and get their crew back to the ship. And the planet has been completely surrounded by a force field, this hexagonal force field.
Pax Federatica says Ground Zero is the name of the Hobus mission. He says the map looks really nice, though I suppose it'll be turning into a hellscape for the battle scenes, and he is absolutely correct. This place is going straight to hell.
Well, I know what this map looks like underneath this floor, so I don't know if you're going to...
It's fine.
Open up a few holes.
I think not, probably. What I'm going to do is use swap these out for the destroyed version of the buildings. There's going to be lots of fires, lots of debris, lots of explosions all around you as it's being bombarded. It's, I'm taking a lot of influence actually from the movie Tora, 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 which is, an old 70s war movie about Pearl Harbor. So it's definitely, my usual thing is, I create, awesome maps and then blow them up. That's my favorite thing to do. So, moving on, let's see. Hippie, have you been working at all in the Foundry?
I actually have. Being that maps are a little difficult to work on right now with the whole, a lot of objects being nothing but a solid white block, including platforms. What I've been doing is, I've been creating a lot of NPCs for a mission that I'm working on and getting a lot of the dialogue put in, and just instead of actually building a map, just putting, a placeholder there and putting the various, putting the points along the flow chart kind of thing. But the mission that I've been working on is it's set before, it is set in 2409, and you are asked to come back to the academy to assist with testing a new holodeck command training program in which I'm going to let players know in the dialogue that because the first person you talk to is Sarky in the Commandant's office at Starfleet Academy. And along the way, I'm going to have the player pass by the tailor so that if they have the original series outfit, they can put it on. And then you go over to the holodeck where the recreation inside of the holodeck that you're going to be stepping into is you and the boss that you've brought with you are stepping into an early exploration mission after the shakedown cruise of the USS Constitution, the NCC 1700. Right after its shakedown cruises, one of the early missions in the year before the Enterprise was launched and took all the glory. So you're going to begin the mission listening to the captain's log of the Commodore who was in charge of the ship, and I'm taking that information from memory beta because hey, it's not official. So and I'm okay with using it. So that's going to be the story, is you sitting in the captain's seat and your bridge officer crew being the command crew of not the first mission, but one of the early missions before even some of the stuff that you saw in the first season of the original series. So that's kind of what I've been working on.
Sounds very cool. Hey, if you want to use the Holo History tag, you can go ahead and use it.
Right on.
That's what I tagged my KDF missions with, the holodeck, historical holodeck programs, and that's what I'm using on this one as well.
Very cool.
And I should mention, if anyone wants to check out this map that we're looking at that I've been building, take a look. It's just called Starbase 1 Work in Progress, WIP. It's up. Anybody can look at it, and you won't mess anything even if you review it, so, cause it's in its own slot, so.
Which you will need to be a reviewer to see.
Yes, this is true.
Mm.
All right, Mark, have you been working in the Foundry at all?
Tinkering a little bit. I'm thinking about adding a map to my test mission to let people go back and look at what the old KDF home base map was that they replaced with the first city. Because it had a very different layout and rather awkward layout in my opinion. Because I remember the map well enough to be able to put things in places so that you can have the player go into a room and then talk to an NPC that says something like, this is where the KDF people used to come to get new starships and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about that map recently because it has some graphical issues.
Yeah, I remember you said that you and someone else deduced that the issue that people were having is that certain parts of the walls and floors are coded as low visibility objects or high detail
objects. Yeah, it was me and Primar, because Primar I think was wanting to use it in one of his missions. And was running into this, and we were talking in the chat room, and I went and tested it at various graphics settings and figured out that was the setting that was doing it. But it's still not a bad map. I mean, as long as you're running at high graphics. All right. Well, let's see. Greendragoon, who is our audio problem tonight, is next.
I'm working on it.
Next in line for what have you been working on?
Yeah. Actually,
Can I start this year with a question for you? Have you been working on part 2?
I have, in fact, been working on part 2. Quite a lot, actually. Actually, over the break, I had a little bit of free time, and inspiration struck. And so I have actually been gotten quite a bit of time into part 2. I'm still on map 8, and the outline for map 8 goes something like an introduction phase where you're kind of figuring out what's going on, a 3-step process where you shut down 3 generators, and then an escape phase where you kind of wrap up the story, and it kind of is the climax of the entire episode. When I kind of went into the holidays, I had gotten the introduction phase and was starting to work on the first generator. And there's story going on throughout this entire thing. So just because you're shutting down 3 generators doesn't mean that things are happening at each generator and story is progressing. So over the break, I managed to get generator 1, generator 2 fixed, and a good start on generator 3. So I just need to finish up generator 3, then the climax, which involves this whole big chase and big fight at the end. And then after that, I've only got 3 more maps, all of which are insanely smaller than map 8. So if I can just get through map 8, I mean, I am in the home stretch. And at the very least, once I get through that, then I will have a playable mission, if not a polished mission.
That's a good milestone to get to.
Yeah.
Is when it's actually playable.
Yeah, so at the very least, then I can kind of start bringing in people and getting some feedback on the story and the flow of things. I mean, it's definitely a long mission. It's at least as long as part 1, probably a little bit longer. So it's always a concern with me, and one that I had with part 2 as well, or with part 1 as well, is that it doesn't bunch up or drag anywhere.
It's like a good blanket. Shouldn't bunch up or drag.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's despite its length, it's actually very action fast paced, but there's a fair amount of exposition at points, as you basically try to get out of the situation I left you in part 1. Which of course
I can say from the beginning parts that Hippie and I have seen that it so far seems to flow very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I didn't want you to. I mean, you ever seen some of those cliffhangers, especially in certain shows when they cross seasons, where they'll leave in a situation, but getting out of the situation takes like all of 5 minutes, and then the next episode is really about something else.
Oh yeah, all the time.
I didn't want that. I wanted to take just as long getting out of the situation as it did to get in.
Oh, fantastic. Should also mention your other published mission, Make Peace Go, or Making Peace Go, which is all of ours, yeah, that we made on our live stream in December, is up, and we hope people will play it. Obviously, it's a very, very simple mission. We were just, looking to get it done as quick as possible.
Yeah, a lot of the fun is going back and watching us make it and then playing through, or vice versa. Because I mean, that's the fun part, is just kind of seeing how it was constructed.
Right.
Which we had a lot of fun doing. So let's see, we've got a few mission reviews. Hippie, do you want to start us off?
So earlier I'll say this year, I had a chance to talk with, the author. He goes, it's either Ash Kirk, the Scar family. He's, a big Cation player, has crafted a series of missions around the Borg called Perfection. And he asked me in the chat room, will you play my mission? And I said, and give you really and like brutally honest feedback. I think good.
You're really Skyping out there pretty bad.
So well. Great, we're having all kinds of audio problems.
Yeah, no good.
Are we any better? Am I still Skypey?
Seems a little better.
Okay. I just clicked on the quality of the call, so.
Let's see. Pax says Ash Crick 23. And he says,
he
says it is Crick, not Kirk.
There we go.
Okay.
So he warned me going in. The first part of this is very grindy. It was me, that and learning how to do things. And, so I knew that going in that it was going to be a very grindy mission. But, somebody telling me that something's going to be no amount of how much grind I thought was going to appear in front of me. They're losing me in the chat room too. Skyping out.
Yeah, but you just gotta remember that the delay.
Oh.
They were hearing you like a minute ago.
Oh, right, okay. The thing is that there's a lot of grind in this mission, like a lot. I would recommend it for somebody who needs the accolade or wants the accolade for killing a certain number of Borg. But the thing is that for me there were two things wrong, or not. There were things about this mission that really did. The first one was how it was. It was more than just one of those kill certain number of type of thing. It was just, wow. It overwhelming, enemy mobs there were. The second thing that was wrong for me was that, I actually went back in after I talked to him about this, was that when I played it, there was, an aspect of the story that that was kind of a double-edged sword. I don't know how it, going to the specific of it is that there's the Borg have found an Omega molecule and you have to, it's pursue this and, stop the Borg from getting all of this power kind of thing. And, the way that it was written when I played it, it seemed to indicate that I was going to get this and bring it back to the Federation so we could study it. And I was like, no, that's like, that didn't work. And so when I told him that was the way that the dialogue played to me, he was like, oh, that wasn't what I meant. And he went back and just put in one line that indicated what we were really doing. And that changed that whole part of it for me. So really, there's only one thing about the mission that was, distasteful for me. The things that really, really worked though, and this is when I told him, hey, I was going to be brutally honest, and I told him, how much the grind did not work for me. And then I turned around and said what really, really, really worked for me was the attention to detail within the grind that I had to do. When I was fighting Borg, there was a little bit of, I don't know how I knew what their designation was, but at the point it was like 34 of 100 or 2 100. And at another point I was facing a larger Borg. They were 1 of 4 and 3 of 4 and 4, and I'm that going through it and just seeing how much detail was put there, that all of those, 2 of 100 and all of that, there were literally a certain number of, there were certainly a point of, I feel like he took the time to make sure that he numbered and labeled all of those enemy mobs properly. So, the other thing that really worked is how strong the characters that you encounter, for the brief amount of time that you encounter them, they are really, really, you know that I love the story and that you encounter are super presented. Really, I knew this whole star family that you encounter during, again, it was attention to detail. It was, the maps were really nice redresses of Borg. They looked good. I felt like I was going through a really great, kind of Borg action episode or whatever. So there was a lot that was done really right. And if you don't mind a whole lot killing Borg and a whole lot of it on the ground, that's part of it too. I like ground, and it was a lot. And for somebody who doesn't like a lot of ground, it's going to be a whole lot. I really liked it overall. For a first part of a series, it has enough story hooks that had me interested enough that I'm gonna go back and play the other part at some point very soon. So that's my review of Perfection 1.
Yeah, we were definitely still having issues with you cutting out there.
Yes.
Which is not the first time we've had that trouble with you, I'm afraid. And usually I try and edit it out as much as I can, but obviously we're live, it's tough to do that, but I don't know. We can try
Sorry,
and work
everybody.
on that. We can try and work on that.
Yeah, pure unadulterated Foundry Roundtable.
Yes, indeed. So, Mark, you had a mission to talk about.
Yes. It was by, hold on one sec. Make sure I get the guy's name right. Well, anyways, while I'm looking at the guy's name up, I'll give you an overview of the mission. The overview of the mission is that an incident in Cardassian space has indicated that the Maquis have suddenly reemerged after apparently being dissolved decades ago. And your character is pulled in to figure out what's going on with these Maquis and who's behind it before they, force the Cardassians into doing something about it. Okay, here it is. Return of the Maquis by Ryan 218. Most of the story is you going to places and talking to people about what's going on, which, it actually, the way he writes the dialogue, it's actually very dramatic. Because, you'll be talking to this guy and then all of a sudden, a different person pops up in the dialogue and it says something like, Admiral, a ship just dropped a bunch of this bioweapon into the atmosphere of some planet. Come quick and help fix things, and stuff like that. Aside from one or two ambiguities in the story, the story he wrote is actually very good, although it does have certain similarities to one of the Maquis-oriented stories in Deep Space Nine, where Benjamin Sisko is chasing some Maquis guy around.
That would be, was it Michaels?
Eddington.
No, it's Eddington.
Yeah, Eddington.
It was Michael Eddington, that was it.
It's a part one of two though, so you never actually you actually talk to the guy at the start of the story before you find out that he's the person you're looking for. And after that, you're never even on the same map as the guy, because he does the standard supervillain routine of, haha, you thought you got me, but I'm not actually here.
The old switcheroo.
Yeah. Well, in his case, he was talking to you and redirecting an audio or a signal feed through subspace relay. So that you're getting the signal from this small ship, but the signal's actually coming from somewhere a long ways away. The bad parts with it, though, is that it's not entirely clear what Myro is actually trying to do. If he's really just trying to cause chaos, or whether he really has some true motive. But like I said, it's a part 1 of 2, so maybe we'll find out in part 2. Because it doesn't really explain what Myro's trying to do. He talks about how the situation where they resolved the conflict between Starfleet and the Cardassians. He says a few things about how he feels that certain provisions of that treaty were unjust or something to that effect, but yeah, he doesn't really explain that. And also, aside from the dialogue, the mission is actually very short because there's only most of the maps have this thing where you basically just like enter, talk to somebody, then leave, which the story part of it that he attached that is reasonably good, but it does get kind of boring. So, I mean, you know, it's definitely worth a play, and I wouldn't say that it's a great mission, however.
Well, it's a good subject. I've always thought the Maquis episodes were pretty good from the shows, so I think I might go on ahead and play that one. Like to see them back in the fold.
Yeah, it's a hard sell in this time period, especially since the Cardassians, at least the official ones,
we
are
don't know a whole lot though about what's going on in that sort of area. We get a few missions there, but
well, they talk about the military being mostly disbanded. They're only allowed to keep a few ships for patrol.
They're Cardassians.
Yeah. Well,
they're not going to stick to that.
Well, that's actually evident
in my opinion.
When you read through the Path to 2409 stuff, there's an entry in there about how a large chunk of the Cardassian fleet simply disappeared in the night after the Treaty of Bajor was signed.
Well, that's probably where the Trueway got all of its ships.
They
probably used the personnel and equipment on those ships to build hidden star bases with repair yards and fabrication equipment somewhere. I mean, because Cardassian space is actually not that small. There's a whole lot of planets that have old abandoned Obsidian Order equipment on them out there somewhere in the dark depths of space.
Well, there's definitely a lot of story material to be mined there, I think. One of these days I would like to do a big series in Cardassian space. That was a suggestion I had way back when I did my Romulan series. Somebody played up and said, this is a great series, you should do one in Cardassian.
Cardassians are some of my favorite villains.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see, I also played a mission. I did a little experiment. I decided, because we were talking a little bit about the tagging system on the forums and whether or not it actually works. And so I wanted to do an experiment. I wanted to try and find a good mission, a good story mission, from somebody I'd never heard of, a mission I'd never heard of before, using just the tag system. So what I did is I tagged it to search for story and solo, and I actually tagged it to exclude combat. Because I figured, I had a better chance of getting, a story-based mission if I excluded combat. So I searched for that. It's not 100%. I still saw a few things that looked like, farming grinder missions in there. But it came up with a good-looking list. And so I played something called Marionette by Judge 479. Now this looks like, and I don't have anything to prove this, but it looks like his first mission. But that's okay. I've played a lot of first missions before, and I kind of know what to look for. And I kind of know what, suggestions to give a first time author. And I think this definitely, really had the makings of somebody who could be a good Foundry author, I think. It was polished. There wasn't anything in particular that didn't work. All the objectives led to where they were supposed to. almost everything was named. A lot of the NPCs were named. There were still, a few Federation Science 01 in there, but a lot of people have that issue, including myself. They forget to do those. So let's see. What it was about is, it starts off with a distress call. You're traveling through space and you hear a distress call. Nothing particularly wrong with that. A lot of Star Trek episodes begin that way. It's definitely a good way to start, especially for, if you're starting just, a simple mission or even a complex mission. So from there you go to the Sierra 2 outpost, which we should all be familiar with from the Romulan missions on the Federation side. And you investigate, some strange readings and attack on a space station, which turns out to be from the Borg. So, it's a Borg-based mission. I'm going to suggest to the author that, if, and anybody out there who's doing Borg missions, you should warn people up front that it is the Borg because they will need their, remodulators. And, I have to assume that not everybody is going to have those on them. They're very easy to get, but...
You can replicate those while on a ground map.
Yeah. But if you don't know how to do that, you can't assume that everybody knows how to do everything. So if you warn people up front that it's, there's going to be Borg and they need their remodulators, job done, no worries. So you fight off this Borg attack. He did a good job of starting to, show an assimilated space station, an assimilated Federation station. I thought he could have gone even further on that, add even more Borg stuff to the interior of this thing, but it was, what he had there was well done and well placed. And showed, when I play a mission that's by a first time author, what I tend to look for is, are they sort of, getting into that of placing custom objects and really starting to make these spaces their own rather than just using, what is there and nothing else. And he was definitely doing that. He's definitely going that direction. His space maps could use a little work. He was putting down custom objects, but, he was not varying the Y values. So everything was on a single plane, which doesn't look very natural. As I always tell people, my philosophy is to vary the Y values on the objects so it looks sort of naturally chaotic a little bit and not all in a straight line. And then have all of your objectives on a single plane. That's what I tend to do. And he also used the blank star fields for the backdrops, which I don't think looks very good, which is kind of funny because that's actually the more realistic space backdrop to what you would actually see in space. But it looks sort of boring and it looks almost disorienting in a way because there's just no landmarks. So I like to put in the more interesting looking backdrops.
I don't know, have you guys ever been out to the desert? Or somewhere where the humidity is really low at night?
I live in the Great American Desert. So yeah, I've definitely been out away from civilization, away from light pollution, where the Milky Way is very visible.
Yeah, you look up at the sky and try to see how many different stars you can spot within a single square inch.
It's a ton. I can tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a case of the stars are not uniform in their spread. So there's some areas that have less, some that have more. Based around where you're viewing, seeing the band of the galaxy.
But I'm talking about nebulas and things like that.
It's true.
There's a trope on TV tropes that it says reality is unrealistic. It's the things that are real don't look like you think they should. And, the blank star field is probably what you would see in most star systems.
Actually, didn't they say that the space background that you see in sector space is actually sourced from actual photos?
Is it really? Well, then that's very subtle coloring effects.
It looks like it could be, yeah.
I think it's very cool if that's the case. But in any case, that's just a personal preference. Is I like the more interesting looking stuff, the more, the big nebulas and supernovas and cool stuff like that. There was an instance in this one where you go to a space map, which, he could have eliminated, because all you did was, one thing of dialogue and then you were off to the next map. I mean, quite literally one dialogue window. So I think, that's something you learn that you can skip. You might think, and I thought when I first started, I was very much showing every step in the process. And I've learned since then that it's really not, I think, ideal. You can skip steps. You can say, beam us up and follow that warp trail in this case and go right to the next space map where you are going to do what you're going to do. Now the only other thing, that I would say in this one is that there was maybe a touch too many, kill objectives. He had one where you have to work your way through 11 space mobs, which is a lot. Thankfully not all at once. Although in the final battle with the Borg, you do I think 6 all in one place. Fortunately, I was able to, fight smart instead of hard and, pull off one mob, come back, pull off the next. But, I think in that case, I would bring in some allies for that battle. But, I definitely see a lot of potential in this, and I really hope, Judge 479 continues making missions, because he's definitely got the basics down. Alright, see, Greendragoon, you did not have a mission for us today, is that correct?
I can talk a little bit about, Purity 5.
Oh, great, yes.
I did play through that, weeks ago, right after the Foundry came back, and then we didn't do a proper show since then. So I have not had a chance to actually review it. It's been a little while since I played it, so help fill me in on a few of the details if I stray. So the basic gist of the plan or the mission is that you are on your way back to Earth to basically report on everything you found, and one of your fellow captains has basically come forward and admitted that his involvement in the conspiracy, and agrees to help you kind of ambush another starship that's coming basically to take you out because you know too much. And so you take them out, you board them, and you basically uncover this plot to try and assassinate the president of the Federation, so President Okeg. You go through and you actually meet the president on Vulcan, and escort him safely back to Paris. And I don't know if I should say any more, because if I say any more, I will be spoiling things. But there's a huge twist in the plot, and what you thought was going on is not, and who you thought you could trust isn't. So it's definitely a big thing, and I didn't.
Don't spoil
I will admit
it.
I didn't see it coming. Story-wise, it's definitely top-notch. It's definitely kind of the big twist before the climax. The big thing I will say is that at this point, and it might have been because there was a couple of week gap between me playing Purity 4 and Purity 5, is I've been kind of starting to have trouble following all of the characters, because there are a lot of them. Because, we started out with this rogue admiral, which had a captain working for her, and then you had another captain that was supposed to be helping you out, and there might have been a third captain in there somewhere. And it's just all of these different twists and plots, and we kind of have lost characters and gained characters, and it's to the point where I have just a little bit of trouble keeping track of them all. That said, the story is definitely very good, and that may have just been, it was a long enough gap between me playing the two parts that I just forgot some of the details. But it does kind of bug me a little bit, and that our original villain kind of disappeared in Purity 3. And I keep expecting her to come back, and I have not played Purity 6 yet, so don't spoil anything.
It's the best one ever. I'm not biased at all.
I'll have an idea to throw by you later that you may like. So basically, tech-wise, tech continues to be top. I do want to point out that there's just a really nice construction of the Eiffel Tower. One of the final maps ends up in Paris in the president's office. And now I was talking to Relentime, and he said that Cerberus actually built the Eiffel Tower.
Yes,
or at least came up.
He built the Eiffel Tower, and then he also built a different version of it that you actually go to in Part 6.
Okay.
That I used, and so he essentially gave us the the asset list and what coordinates to put them at. It's really worked out very well. I've had a lot of compliments on the one in Part 6, even to the point of where people who have been there said it's about as close as you can get in the Foundry.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a tough construct because I mean that's not a simple construction.
No, he spent a lot of time on that.
But yeah, I mean, if I could give one comment to the story, I would say this is the third time that I have boarded and captured another Federation starship in this series. So I'm seeing a little bit of repetition here between the different parts. Gameplay-wise, gameplay was good. I'm trying to think. I don't specifically remember any puzzles that I can come to mind. But again, it might just been because it's been a little while since I played it. It might just be slipping my mind. Definitely fun to see it. I think there was a couple of points in the where patrols were doing something a little weird. For instance, when you're escorting the president on Vulcan, I believe he's an NPC contact, and you're intercepted by enemy forces as you're trying to escort him. Of course, since he's immune to battle, he keeps going, and you have to stay and fight. So there's a little bit of risk that he could start doubling back and walking back the way he came. Which unfortunately is a shame that we don't have one-way patrol paths. There was another one where
that's something that Neverwinter has, and hopefully maybe we'll get that.
Yeah.
Well, couldn't you make the guy disappear? Wait, no, the trigger has to be something the player does, doesn't it? Never mind.
Yeah. There was another spot, like on the bridge of the Federation ship you capture, where you get everything done and you finish talking to the captain, and a group spawns in, which I think might be a version of the captain, except that the other captain doesn't disappear, and this new captain just keeps running back and forth around the bridge. So that wasn't working quite right. Other than that, yeah, I mean, it's definitely building to a head. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where you wrap things up, because I mean, it seems like there is a lot of loose threads that still need to be wrapped up.
Yeah, there definitely is, and tried to do that with Part 6. Although not entirely, we do have, I think, at least one follow-up mission planned.
Okay.
That won't be spotlighted like the rest of them, but it will be there eventually.
Well, you can always submit it like normal people.
Oh yeah, of course. Captain P.F. Dennis, who wrote our story, is in the chat room, and he did want to mention that it was no simple matter to write a plot like that and separate it into 6 equal and interesting parts, and we had to add one in the middle of it as well.
True.
Because we had originally 5 parts, and then we had 6 authors who wanted to be involved. So we were.
And it's good to mention that so you guys or Brandon announced that Purity is going to get pulled temporarily, so you guys can fix stuff.
Yeah, he's nice enough to let us fix a few things. I don't think there's too much in my mission, but I know Relum had definitely some things he wanted to fix and things like that.
Okay.
But I can think of a few things in my mission I can tweak, just some little mistakes and typos especially, of course.
And nothing I saw in 5 was like huge. I mean, although the technical glitches I saw were like minor ones, like that's got a little bit weird, but could definitely proceed.
Well, I'm looking forward to you playing part 6 because I'm very proud of it, and indeed of the whole project. All right. Well, let's see. We've got some time left, so I kind of came up with a discussion topic that I'd like to hear from you guys on. It's something that came up on the forums. What do you guys think of requiring people to put in some text anytime they leave a star rating? This kind of essentially would eliminate the ability to leave anonymous star ratings.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of sides to it, obviously.
And it would have the double-edged effect of basically requiring that you reveal yourself. So, I mean, I do understand where, and I know the thread you're talking about. I do understand where people are coming from on wanting this. I mean, it sucks to get your newfound mission 1-star bombed and suddenly watch your rating plummet. And
of course, it has more effect when you have less reviews. Totally.
Yeah, and it happened to me too. I mean, a couple of people came through and 1-starred it. It only had a few plays. And while I would never condone this kind of behavior, at the same time, I think some people legitimately, I mean, do have the right to not like your mission. So, I mean, and I'm sure there's a few people out there, and I think you met at least one on the forums that are who have standards that are not in line with most authors. Which means that they're gonna not like a lot of missions, or only like a very specific set. And it'll be on.
Yeah, I think just a real quick comment, and what you're saying leads me to feel this way, is that what it really is a conversation about how to deal with 1-star reviews that leave no comment, and how to let those slide off your back, because if they're not going to comment, they're not offering you kind of that. So it comes from me a question of deal with those, and not a question of forcing people to leave,
Yeah. Yeah, and especially early on, I mean, it's one of those things that I just kind of had to accept, what? It is what it is. And I didn't make this mission to, get 5 stars. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta make your mission for you. If you try to make a mission for everyone else, it's gonna become confused and muddled. So you have to make a mission you think is good.
Well, one thought I have about the whole 1-star discussion is that if someone leaves a 1-star review because they hate a mission, it is extremely unlikely that they will explain why they hated the mission.
Or that the feedback that they give will be something that you can use.
Here's an alternate way to look at it too, because I mean, I know that the discussion begins because you want to force someone to leave feedback if they're going to 1-star you. It's a way to say, you can't just 1-star, and just bandit all the missions with 1 star, whatever. But so devil's advocate is if somebody is leaving a 5-star review, you have to put the exact same requirement on that. And why is there no argument for the other way around? That if someone wants to 5-star you, they have to leave some sort of text review as well. It's just a devil's advocate, but it's something to think about.
Well, I mean, if they change it, I'd say that change it so that you have to leave a comment whenever you add a star rating.
I'm going to play devil's advocate to that and say that there have been times when I've played through a mission and wanted to leave a star rating and a tip, but didn't have time to elaborate on it. And sometimes I often intended to go back and expand upon it, but because of the way the system works, when I finish a mission, that is the only opportunity I have to leave a dilithium tip. I can go back and edit my review, but if I try to go back, it will not let me leave a dilithium tip. And there are certain reasons why this is the case, which I won't go into, but yeah, I mean, and sometimes, I mean, I can say I like a mission, I don't really have any specific actionable feedback for you, or it's something I need to mull over a few days. I mean, I've often talked about how I don't like to play and immediately review a mission because how a mission sits with me will settle after a little bit of time.
There is that, and then there was a comment that I saw that I'm finishing and I need to get out and I don't have time to leave. I just need to leave my star rating and a listing tip, and if I'm not allowed to do that, means that the author isn't getting that 5-star, 4-star, 1-star, or whatever it was, if that happens. And someone in the chat room just said it, the idea of having to leave some sort of supporting reason seems fair to the author, but it does completely encroach upon anonymity. You can't just leave anonymous reviews, and that is something that I don't like about the suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, as much as people want to bring like 1-star bandits, as they call them, to be accountable, there is a certain amount of anonymity about the internet, and something that, while you kind of want to expose someone else who's causing you problems, you don't necessarily want your own anonymity stripped from you.
And that is what I think the suggestion is aimed at. It's not aimed at, the people who legitimately played your mission and don't like it. That's fine. I mean, for me, that's fine. I mean, if somebody doesn't like my mission, they don't like it, and if all they want to leave is 1-star sucks, okay, fine, I'll take it and move on. But what I don't like, and what I would like to see some more accountability on, is that those people who are going in 1-starring missions just to kind of sabotage them. And we've seen that throughout the lifetime of the Foundry.
Yeah.
And I think, and I mean, obviously it's not gonna, it's not a silver bullet, it's not gonna just make that stop just because their @ handle has to be attached to it. But I think it just increases that accountability, and also, as you said, Hippie, for people who 5-star without leaving anything, that leaves their name, so you can see, oh, this person 5-starred their own, this person got on 5 alternate accounts and 5-starred their mission 5 times.
So another thing that, and this gets back to the thread you're referring to, is another thing I'm a little concerned about is, and I am not suggesting that one author in particular would do this, but that someone will, and that is retaliatory actions against people who 1-star.
Yeah, and that's certainly a concern, and I mean, it's not like it couldn't happen now. People,
yeah.
I mean, there were stories of people, in there who had left reviews that were, predominantly negative and had, Foundry authors chew them out for it, which I don't think is right and I don't think should be done, personally.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of double-edgedness to this.
Oh God, yeah. That's why I brought it up, because, it's not something that I say, my opinion is the only right one on this issue, and, I definitely see a lot of sides to it. And I just thought I ought to bring it up for you guys.
I think it's a good topic. But I think the topic, I think the stronger topic and the way to approach it is to discussion last year, and I think it's important to revisit that sometimes as authors, how we deal with people who do that, who go through on what we call 1-star bandit missions. And
I mean, I know it's really hard right now to get plays on your missions, but I mean, I cannot encourage people enough to try and, I mean, just go on the forums, go post to Starbase UGC and just advertise your missions. I mean, there are going to be 1-stars. I mean, I don't think any system they implement will get rid of 1-stars. But it's just a matter of get out there and, I mean, get more legitimate plays. I mean, do whatever you need to. I mean, sell it like you were starting a new business. I mean,
and this is something that I know everybody likes to be negative on the weighting system that was put in place, but the weighting system actually does make it a little bit harder for this to happen. And I think curbed it a little bit, because what used to be happening is that somebody would come out with a new mission, and a couple people played it, they really liked it, gave it 4 or 5 stars, it would jump to the top of the list. And there were people who would see this. I'm speculating, I don't necessarily have proof, but it happened so many times that we're pretty sure what's going on, is that there were people who would see this and give it, a couple of, even 1 star, that would drop it way down the list to the, the average 3-star missions and never be heard from again. But with the weighting system, it works a bit differently. Obviously, it's a lot tougher to get into that top position. Your average has to be way up there, and so you have to have several, and you have to have a lot of reviews to even get up there. And so 1-star usually isn't going to bring down your weighted rating as much as it used to.
Yeah. Although it would be nice if they didn't actually put the weighted rating on there, because it's kind of confusing as it is now.
It is a little confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, and I do like the idea that some people have been advocating for, of increasing the length of the list. I mean, and it doesn't just do.
I think that's a given that we kind of all want that.
Yeah. I suspect that Neverwinter did this, and I think that's where we got this when they ported over code. That Neverwinter did this to reduce the load on their database search, because I mean, the more entries you have to search, the tougher it is on the engine. But yeah, I definitely think 50 is far too short. I would also kind of like to see more tabs than just the ones we have. So maybe we do top story or top combat, top whatever.
Well, the usual idea I have, I hear, is just simply a next button at the bottom of the list that gives you the next 50 and the next 50 after that.
And for the record, we never had a next button on there. All we had was
we never
some
did.
200 or 300 long list.
But I don't think it would be too difficult to put on there.
I would hope not, but it would require them to make a concerted effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like focused attention on it. And if they did focus that attention on it, I have a feeling that the entire mission UI, the journal UI could use a serious overhaul, because it's not just the Foundry tab that's kind of languishing. We have tabs on there that serve absolutely no purpose, or that nobody is ever going to know what to do with. We have an available missions tab. Who has ever looked in there or knows what it's for? That it wasn't here before they put up the episode list.
The which one? Sorry.
The available missions. Sure. I mean, we're in the Foundry.
Yeah, I sure don't use that near as much as I used to.
But yeah,
before
available
they had
tab.
the episode tab.
And it lists just a good portion of all the mission giver contacts around.
It does, and it lists all of those, like exploration wrappers and things like that.
So, I mean, did people know that there are first contact missions if you go down to Jura Segura? Bet you nobody knows about that, because, I mean, the entire UI is due for an overhaul, not just the Foundry tab.
Yeah, well, there's another issue with the missions you get from Jiro Sugihara, in that once you accept the mission, it does not appear in your mission log, or at least it used to be that it didn't.
Yeah,
you had to remember that you accepted the mission and where you had to go for the mission, and then once you went there, you'd see a button pop up, and you could click the button to start the mission.
Yeah.
Well, we know they are working on that interface, because they're going to have to, because they're getting rid of the hourly events, and they're changing how all those work. They announced that in today's dev blog.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll take this opportunity to do a complete overhaul, but it's definitely one of those things that
they haven't mentioned that, but they're going to have to change it a bit.
Yeah, it would be nice for them just to take a kind of a long, hard look at the whole journal. Let Thomas in on it.
There you go.
Go let him sink his teeth in that, because that is
let him go wild.
That is a UI designer's biggest challenge.
Yeah. So let's see. Do you guys got any other topics for the evening? We've been away for a while.
There's the only thing that I've been thinking about as far as a discussion topic with the Foundry goes is I've been having I'm glad we have Voth mobs in the Foundry. I really am. They're neat. I don't know what to do with them. I would put that question to the other people that are on the Skype call with me, and also out to the chat room and to the community, is brainstorm some ideas, tell me what I can do with some Voth, because the mobs are neat, but I just don't know what to do with them right now.
One thing I would suggest is, take them and reskin them as other things that will fit your mission, because they are going to be a little bit harder than any of the other mobs that are in there. It's going to up the difficulty level a little bit.
Right.
And I think the captain ones work very well for boss fights, because there's one of them, and I can tell you how to do this. It's sort of the middle of the mob. One of them will always spawn as the big mech. So reskin him as your big boss.
Oh, right on.
And you make a nice one. Let's see. One of the things that I wanted to do before I found out how they worked was make a Jurassic Park inspired mission. But since you can't determine with any exactitude which dinosaurs will spawn, and if any dinosaurs will spawn, I kind of put that one on hold.
Yeah, that'd be tough, because you just don't know.
No. Because when you put down a Voth mob, you don't know if it's going to be all humanoid Voth. You don't know if it's going to be humanoid Voth, one dinosaur, and one mech. I find it kind of annoying. Let's see. Admiral Tate says, until we get this out of the sphere or get assets from inside the sphere, there really isn't much to do. Obviously, we included Voth in our mission that we built in December on our live stream.
Right.
we had that sort of that effort to make peace with the Voth, which I thought was an interesting one. You could do a mission based on that and actually have maybe more success than we had.
Voth contacts would help.
Mm-hmm. Which we do have Voth space contacts. We can make Voth ships in the costume creator, and so make space NPCs for that. Can't do ground though.
Right.
But I think there's some story opportunities there to kind of explore who the Voth really are outside of what they're doing in the sphere.
Yeah, and I'm not saying tell me necessarily what to do with it. I guess I'm putting that out there to the community.
I'm putting that out there as well.
Yeah, put it out there to the community. Like, I'd love to see some Voth stories and see some interesting things done with them. That's the main thing I've been thinking about because they're the newest asset, so.
And, we know that there's going to be a mission for the anniversary, and we know the reward, we know it's going to continue the storyline for the Dyson Sphere, and we know it's going to have some new ships, new player ships as rewards that are going to be sort of like, inspired by, the engineers have been taking things from the sphere and putting them to use in some way.
They blended technology, but something along those lines that, that's going to be
I'm interested to see what they come up with, and I bet you we'll hear more about it maybe next week or Friday or something like that.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about maybe having as a topic is proper use of invisible walls.
Yeah, they can be very useful. Obviously, you got to make sure that you have them appear and disappear at the right moments you want. Otherwise, you could trap people.
Yep.
Well,
you don't want to do that.
One thing I was specifically thinking about mentioning, it's an idea that I thought of from when I went on Tribble and looked at the new Keisei ground map, is that the new Keisei ground map on Tribble, I'm not 100% sure this is a change from the version on holodeck. It might be, it might not be. I don't remember it from when I did this mission on holodeck, but it's been a while. One of the things with the map is that, it has the standard perimeter at the edges of the map, so you can't, walk off the map, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it also has a bunch of invisible walls, making it so that you can't walk off into random sections of the swamps. Which, I don't get that one. Because, there's nothing in the swamp that gives you a reason not to wander out there for 30 seconds and then, go back to the mission.
Of course, you're one of those people who likes to try and go everywhere and push the boundaries. So maybe it's there to just sort of stop you doing that and make you go on with the mission.
Well, if you look at the Twitch chat channel, I posted a link to the map I made of the Keisei invisible walls.
I haven't seen the mission yet. I haven't had a chance to get on Tribble, but I can tell you sometimes artists will build things in such a way that in order to get more detail into the background, they'll build things simpler. They'll use just planes with textures on them and stuff like that to kind of imply or simulate lots of detail in the background, like entire forests and stuff. So it may be a case where they're doing something like that, where they're preventing you from seeing the illusion.
Yeah, I didn't notice that because I managed to find two gaps in the walls, and I managed to find actually have my character walk to the four corners of the map. Well, one of the corners is covered by a bush, so I can't actually walk into the southwest corner. But you get the idea.
For us as Foundry authors, though, we can kind of use them in the same way to essentially funnel people to the parts of the map we want them to go to.
I seem to remember one of you guys on a certain map when you were helping me test in part 2. That one of you guys was disappointed that I had walled off the big pit. Because one of you guys wanted to jump in.
You know, there's sometimes where it's fun to just allow people to jump down and then find some way of, you know, spawning a bunch of mobs and killing them so they can get back up there.
Yeah, but it's supposed to go on a lot longer than it actually does.
Right.
There are a few windows where I have actually walled them off, but sometimes I will jump.
I think about invisible walls, how they keep PC from seeing you. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like any kind of word. So in that case, I'm using them on a board map to keep the board active until you accidentally turn off those force fields. I'm doing that with the third episode. That one, because of a lot of objects having, having no texture and whatnot, the big white blob problem I can't work on that one right now. So.
Should mention that, of course, the white texture thing on the minimap, or, on the 2D map has not been fixed yet. So. But that, Mark brings up a good thing to talk about, which actually is, all of these new, well, they're not entirely new maps, but a lot of sort of art upgrades on the maps in the first few Federation missions is coming with Season 8.5 soon, which I think goes live on the 30th or something like that. And so the question is, what's that going to mean for the Foundry? And I haven't tried to log on the Foundry if it's available on Tribble to see if those art assets get updated in the Foundry maps that we have from those missions.
And removing the mission, War is Good for Business. Mm-hmm. We have a map, War is Good for Business.
Which map is that?
Oh, it's
Treasure Trading Station.
Treasure Trading Station, yeah. It's the map where you finally catch the Ferengi at the end of that long mission. That we have that in the Foundry, so it's very possible after Season 8.5 goes live, the Foundry will have the only remnant of that mission anywhere in the game.
Well, it's not like we don't have those. We've got the remnant of the old Earth Space Dock.
We do. We have some vestiges. Like, they're not going to. And the only reason I think we might get these art upgrades is because they haven't actually changed the ones that I've seen, I should say. I've only played a couple of these, but the ones that I've seen, they haven't actually changed the layout of the map. They have only changed the art style.
Well, then we might see, if it's just art style changes, we might see it.
Yeah.
In theory, also, when they add to the a map, they are supposed to create a version and then copy that into the Foundry. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure that they always do that.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't think that's an official rule. It's just something that they often do. But one thing I was going to mention is that when you play the Ultimate Klingon mission, when you're in the above ground part on the last planet you go to, I think it's Hatoria, it actually has slippery ice now. So
yeah,
that
I heard about. Are we going to get that? Are they going to add that map for us? That's interesting.
Or is the map we have going to be updated with that?
Right.
It's not a big change to the map, but it does interesting things. Because I played the mission, and that map played out almost exactly the same way as it's always done. I go west and to swim through the lake in order to avoid all of the Klingons and to sneak up on the backside of their base. And then when I get to the base, I realize that part of the ground is covered in slick ice while shooting Klingons in the face.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna shoot Klingons, you might as well do it on the slide.
Makes it a little more fun. Well, guys, I think we'll have that be the last for our show tonight.
Been going for a while.
Yeah, we've been going for a while. We will put this up on YouTube for people to listen to, and then I will also make a audio version for people to download if they so choose.
I'd like to add that we have Dragoon, myself, and I all have, Hippiejohn, Dragoon, which is,
You're cutting out a lot there.
Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, Hippiejohn. Is there an underscore in your, Twitter handle?
Don't think so.
Okay, so it's just Hippiejohn, all one word. So at Hippiejohn. I am at Greendragoon, and Drogon is at Drogon1701.
Quick before we go, Rogue Enterprise joined us late and is requesting that you give him a pan around the map here.
Ah.
And I should ask everybody in the chat room to the folks who just joined us that this is we're still new at live streaming, and so we might have some technical glitches here and there, but we hope you bear with us, and we'll try and improve these in future podcasts.
Oh, and I definitely want to encourage anyone, if you want to submit feedback as to what you think of the new format, what you'd like to see in the new format. I mean, we are experimenting here, so we are completely open to suggestions and comments and whatnot. We actually do have an email address. Drogon,
Yep.
What is it?
It is foundryroundtable@live.com.
And real quick, if I'm not too Skypey by this point, there is an underscore. It is Hippie_John.
Maybe for next week we'll come up with a nice contact us slate.
There you go.
All right, so I think that's about it.
Maybe next time you can move the table to one of the Bajoran fire pits in the bottom of the pit.
Well, I should say we do plan to kind of meet in different locations every time.
And also, authors, get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to for an author this year.
Yeah, if you have like a map that you would like, you'd like to submit, and you could just put the map out by itself and pass it along to us. So remember to put a table for us to use in there.
All right.
We're willing to feature artwork.
And definitely a lot of opportunities to do some fun stuff there, as well as, when we get into technical topics, we can have Dragoon take us right into the Foundry to show.
Yep. And who knows, I mean, since we're a video format now, maybe we'll mix things up every once in a while.
Who knows? But I think that will do it for us tonight. So say good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.